I love talking about my different fandoms and favorite video games and movies and TV shows as much as the next person, but there are things happening right now in our country that need to be talked about. It's political, it's not good news, it's things that are uncomfortable to talk about but that need to be talked about and need to be brought attention to. People need to know and stay informed of what is going on. Below in my video description there is an ever-growing list of people, social media accounts, organizations, and websites that are standing up to the hatred and violence we are seeing by our quote-unquote President Trump. Check out any of the links and social media accounts that I have at the bottom of my description to stay informed and to find out how you can help fight back. Just like Captain America said that it doesn't matter what the mobs or the politicians tells you. It doesn't matter if so many of them is saying something wrong is something right. And if they come to you saying that, telling you to move, it is your job to stand there and plant yourself beside the river of truth and say, no, you move. Hatred and ignorance and fear is not what makes our country great. Hey geeks and gamers, what's up? Welcome to my channel. I'm Trey Guillotine, and we are enthusiastically geeking about some of the post-Endgame questions. But before we get into that, I do have one question for you. What you gaming on? If you want your answer featured in an upcoming video and a segment of what you gaming on, let me know the game you're playing, what you like about it, what you don't like about it in the comments of this video or on any of my social media, and your answer will be featured in an upcoming video. We've got a What You Gaming On answer from a longtime fan, Lico Lotad. Thank you, Lico, for submitting yet another one. Always glad to talk to you about video games. He says, I just finished Ocarina of Time on my N64 just so my friend and I could talk about it on his podcast, and that was a fun time. Right now, I'm trying to get some time on Splatoon 2 before the last Splatfest. My queue for the summer after that is Shadows of Mordor, Breath of the Wild, Resident Evil 2, the older version, Silent Hill, Silent Hill 3, Eternal Darkness, Pillars of Eternity, and Majora's Mask. So it's really funny that you actually mention Zelda, because that kind of goes into what I've been gaming on recently. A lot of those do sound fun. I know Ocarina of Time is a great game. It's a game that I really need to, seriously devote some time to, because I always had trouble beating it. I don't know why, but Zelda games sometimes give me some anxiety. So I'm never really able to get that far in them, but I really need to get over that and really put some time into them. As for you having a queue for the rest of the summer, props to you, because so many times I'll be like, oh, I'm going to play this game, and then I'm going to play this game. Last week, I was like, okay, I'm going to play Red Dead Redemption 2, and then I'm going to play Red Dead Redemption, then I'm going to play Grand Theft Auto 5, then 4, and then San Andreas, and completely just didn't even finish Red Dead Redemption 2 for the third time. So more power to you if you're able to have that queue and stick to it. It sounds really if that's your queue, it sounds like a really fun / terrifying summer of gaming. So let me know how that goes for you, and also let me know the podcast that you and your friend have. I will more than happily share it on any of the social media or in my videos. To jump into what I've been gaming on, it's less of what game I've been playing and what I've literally been gaming on the console that I've been gaming on. I recently had a treat yourself moment, and I went and got a Nintendo Switch. I was very excited about what they had to show for E3. But what got me excited about it was, one, Sword and Shield looks really cool. I kind of looked into Let's Go Pikachu, and again, that looks really cool, and it's basically just It's basically a remake of first gen Yellow version, which I'm totally on board with. But the things that really got me excited, aside from Breath of the Wild 2, and I did play Breath of the Wild before, and it was just a very difficult game and gave me some anxiety, but it looks amazing and it got me excited for it. But really, the thing that finally sold me on it was that, yes, Skyrim has been on it, I think, since at least last year. I may be incorrect in that. But something else that is coming to the Switch is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which I, one, will be happy to give CD Projekt Red my money for The Witcher 3 for a third time, this game on its own was just amazing, and then CD Projekt Red, in my opinion, sets the standard of how DLC should be rolled out. They had an entire year of free DLC, of gear, of quests, of modifications, of all of these things that were just free DLC for an entire year, and then when they put out their 2 big story DLCs, one, they were massive, that were as probably long as Witcher 1 or Witcher 2, and they were amazing stories. Like CD Projekt Red, they know how to do a game. And they're one of those companies that they've really only done a few games, and they were all of The Witcher, and now they're doing Cyberpunk 2077. I'm very much looking forward to that because it's coming from CD Projekt Red, even though, like I said, Keanu Reeves is in it. Great. The game looks fantastic. I'm sure I'm going to love it because of CD Projekt Red. But I'm very excited about the possibility of being able to play Skyrim or The Witcher 3 wherever I go. The big sell on Switch, in my opinion, is its mobility. It's basically just a bigger Game Boy, which I'm totally for. So if I'm on a plane ride or a bus ride or just a long car ride or waiting around on campus for something, I can just play the games that I would love to be playing at home. I can play them right there wherever I am. So I think that's great. Also, Liko, you did mention, and I'm calling you out on this, you did mention that our tastes in games couldn't be more different. And I mean, yes, I'm agreeing that we definitely have very different tastes in game, but it was actually another friend I was talking with recently saying that I actually don't like Nintendo, that I don't like the staples that Nintendo is known for, like Legend of Zelda, which isn't true. I do like Legend of Zelda. I've just gotten a lot of anxiety playing it, and it makes it difficult for me to play. Whatever, it's a really difficult game, and I'm really bad at it. But 2, I don't particularly like Mario or Banjo-Kazooie or any of the other kind of staple Nintendo things. And both of you aren't wrong. Our tastes are very different, and I don't necessarily like a lot of what Nintendo is known for, like Super Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, Mario Party. If I'm playing at someone's house, sure. But, on its own, but even just Mario. I've heard so many times that Mario Odyssey is amazing. So I'm kind of tempted to check that out. But when it comes to just other 3D platformers, I've really tried them recently. I tried Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. I tried Ukulele, which came out about a year ago, a little over a year ago. The last few Mario games I've played with, God. Now I'm thinking about the last Mario game I was really into was Super Mario Sunshine, which was okay. I don't necessarily like platformers. I don't know why. I guess I like to have just a little bit more story and a little bit more maturity to it. Just a little bit more. That's why I always say that Kingdom Hearts is kind of the middle ground for me in platformers, where it's still kind of a platformer, but it's also a, fantasy RPG, button mashing game. So I don't know. So I am going to try to rectify that. I'm definitely going to make an effort to check out some of these other games like Mario Odyssey, like some of these other staples of Nintendo, and really see where I am with those. So thank you, Liko Lotad, and to another friend for just having that conversation with me. If you want your answer featured in an upcoming What You Gaming On segment, let me know the game you're playing, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and your answer will be featured in an upcoming episode. So let's get into today's topic, which is questions after Endgame, or post-Endgame questions. I'm not sure what I'm going to name it yet. But we're talking about just the idea of how things are after Endgame. Spider-Man Homecoming, we've seen already 2 trailers coming out, lots of Mysterio action, lots of Nick Fury. Peter Parker and his friends are going off to, it looks like Venice, Italy, but I might be mistaken on that of where actually they're going. In the trailer, it looked like Venice. Could be wrong. But this is the first movie of this new saga. Before we had the Infinity Saga from Iron Man to Endgame, and now we're going to have the whatever this next saga is, from Spider-Man Far From Home to whatever is going to come out as the final thing 10 years later. So wow, we've got 10 years of a new MCU saga. I'm both so happy about that and terrified. Anyway, that's not really what we're talking about here. But in the trailers, we saw that Peter Parker and his friends are going off to whatever trip for whatever reason. It looked like they were going to Venice, Italy, and because they are part of like Quiz Bowl in Homecoming, I'm assuming they're going on a Quiz Bowl trip to Venice, Italy to do International Quiz Bowl. But something that I really noticed in the trailers is that for the most part, everything in the world, everything we saw looked like things were getting back to normal. Cops were being cops. Nick Fury and Maria Hill are doing their SHIELD stuff. Their school is in and they're going on vacation. Like, it just, everything looks like it's back to normal after this apocalyptic event of the snapping. And like all of that happening, and 5 years of that, and then people returning, and then like how, I guess I'm just struggling to imagine how it seems to so easily go back to the way things were, or go back to what was normal before, because that's what it looks like, and that's something I would really like to know. So let's really just kind of delve into what it is that like I think we really need to talk about for after the Endgame, things that I think should be answered in Spider-Man Far From Home or any of the other upcoming films. So let's just think back to the snapping. Nothing before that, not the Infinity War, just the actual snapping and the effects it had on Earth. Not the Milky Way galaxy, not the rest of the universe, just Earth. Essentially, planet Earth lost half of its population so that the other half would basically have double the resources. That was Thanos. That was Thanos' plan. That was his intent, his theory that made him this martyr of he has to do the hard things, which, whatever, Thanos sucks. But that's essentially what happened. Earth lost half of its population, which is in its own right a huge cataclysmic apocalyptic event. But just as we saw at the end of Infinity War, that's not the only problems that the snapping caused. Whenever we see Nick Fury and Maria Hill vanishing, being snapped away, they're in the middle of the city, probably look like New York City, and they see planes coming down, they see helicopters crashing, they see cars crashing into each other because people are just vanishing from where they are. So not only have Earth lost half of its population, but there was probably another significant loss of life, people who weren't snapped away, but who were spared, but were then killed in their upcoming chaos. And that's something that always happens in apocalyptic scenarios, is whatever new normal they're going to get to, the period before is going to be chaos. That's the entire basis of Tom Clancy's The Division games, that there's this apocalyptic event, this mass extinction event, and your job as a Division agent is to fight against the chaos and the gangs and just the new lawless territory that you're in, and try to preserve the sanctity of government and rebuild society as it was. So that's something that is always going to happen when the rules of society change. When all of that happens, the rules of society change, and there has to be an adjustment period where there's just chaos. So not only are people dying from accidents during the snapping, of falling out of the sky in planes and helicopters and car crashes, but there's also the ensuing chaos of people panicking, of people freaking out, of people looting things that they may need to survive whatever it is they're going through, and people dying because of that. But we'll assume that that happened, because we don't see any of that until 5 years later. But between that 5 years, which I would love to see what the Avengers were doing in that 5-year time between Infinity War and Endgame, I doubt we ever will. Maybe we could get some flashbacks. I don't know, I doubt it. But it's something I would like to see. But let's just think about what Earth would have to do to get back to a new normal that we do see in Endgame. So already, let's just talking about Thanos' plan, half the population is gone, so the resources for the other half are now doubled. It's not that simple, because those resources have to be maintained, because if they're doubled, do the prices of groceries stay the same? Do they go up, or do they go down? Is resources such as food in grocery stores being wasted because the other half isn't able to buy as much as the other half would? Talk about the economy. The economy is probably going to have to be adjusted to figure out and compensate how to address this huge loss of population. Same thing with businesses. Businesses are going to lose half their employees, half their management, half their owners, CEOs. Talk about like the stock market. I don't actually understand the stock market, but it probably had to compensate for that loss of half the stock people. I don't actually understand the stock market, but we're going to move on. Factories, even ones that are mostly automated, there are factories and other businesses who are going to lose their employees and lose function in those factories, in those manufacturers. Farmers are going to have double the work now to keep up with whatever that new demand is. So it's going to take time. Even schools. We're talking about Spider-Man Far From Home. Look at schools. Half the students are gone. Half the teachers are gone. So there's going to be double duty for teachers who, an English teacher may have to step up and become a math teacher because they lost half or most of their math teachers. So there's just so much that Earth needs to compensate for to get to a new normal, the new normal that we do see in Endgame. Now, when we do see Endgame, one of the only things that really stood out to me to kind of show what is going on in the rest of the world or how bleak things are was this. We saw this shot of like Liberty Island where the Statue of Liberty is. It looked like it had become kind of a boat shanty town. And the rest of New York just looked really bleak, but even so, there seemed to be some sense of normalcy. They were going to a diner, they were getting tacos. We saw Thor and Korg playing Fortnite in New Asgard. So obviously, things have found that new normal. It's not exactly as it was before, or rather, I assume it's not exactly as it was before. But it has come to a new normal where cell phones are still working, where people are still going to work, people are still living out society. Society is rebuilding itself fairly successfully after losing half of its population. But then another thing we see in Endgame was Steve Rogers leading support groups of people who obviously, everyone lost someone in the snapping, and that's what that support group was for. And one of the things they talk about is one of the people there says that he went on a date with someone. That it was, he's moving on from the person that he lost, the person that he loved, and he's moving on. They went on a date, and they had a good date, but they did talk about the people that they lost and what it is they're going through, and that was Steve Rogers' things, we have to move on. And that's something that a lot of people are going to do because 5 years is a long time. So considering that someone lost their loved one, their significant other, their boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, their spouse, whoever it is they lost, yes, there would be a time of absolute grieving, but 5 years is a long time, so a lot of those people are going to move on. And just in people's lives, people are going to move. People are going to vanish out of their own homes and apartments, and those apartments are going to be moved on to new families, to new people, to rent these new places. So that's what Steve Rogers is trying to tell everyone, to move on. And in 5 years later, Endgame, Earth has found that new normal, and this is where it's going to get even more complicated because as far as we know, the Avengers didn't send out like a press briefing or a memo saying, hey, BT dubs, we're going to get all those people back who vanished. We're going to get them all back. Get ready for that. As far as we know, maybe they did. But let's assume that the majority of the people on Earth, even if government leaders knew about what was going on, what they were trying to do, let's assume the majority of the people on Earth weren't aware of any of this that was about to happen, so that when Hulk snaps everyone back, everyone is reappearing probably where they were left off. So this question comes to mind, are people who were on airplanes or helicopters up in the air or on ships in the middle of the ocean who vanish, are they just going to appear in the sky and fall to the earth? Are they just going to drown in the ocean? If people were in the middle of the street or in their cars when they were vanished, are they appearing in the middle of the street and getting run down by traffic? You know, but like I said, let's just assume that people would be safe, but there's still a lot of problems because Earth found its new normal. Earth compensated for resources and all these other things. They have compensated for losing that half of civilization, that half of its population. And now, the population that is on Earth now isn't half of Earth's population. That's the population. That is the population on Earth. So bringing everyone back isn't just filling the void that half of the population left. It's essentially doubling the population that is now on Earth, and the adjustments that they've made is now they're going to have to immediately double all of that. People who have moved on and married other people and started families, now suddenly they're lost spouses back. So how do you deal with that? People who appear in their old homes and it's not their homes anymore, or appear to their old jobs and it's not their jobs anymore. Like, as great as it is that the Avengers were able to undo what Thanos did, those 5 years still happened. The Earth still compensated for that loss, and bringing everyone back had to have caused some instability. It had to have caused some kind of shift, like a second shift in 5 years, that now the world needs to again compensate for doubling its population. And now, just shifting back to Spider-Man Far From Home. Let's assume, because Peter Parker and all of his friends, Ned, MJ, Flash, all of them who were in Homecoming, who we see in Far From Home, they look like they haven't aged any, which obviously it did. So let's assume that they all vanished, they were all snapped away, and that when they came back, they're the same age. But their friends, who were their classmates, who were their friends, they're now 5 years older. They are now out of high school, in college, or in life, and they've lost the friends that they were once the same class of. So whatever class Peter Parker were of, let's say they're the class of 2021 or class of 2022, they're now the class of probably 2025. Or 2027, whatever year it is they graduated, they're now graduating later than they would have. And how much does that have to suck that you were snapped away out of existence for 5 years and you come back and you still have to finish high school? Like, I know that's a minor thing, but I can imagine every single high school student who has to go through that being like, that really sucks. And finally, and this is really my biggest question, for Spider-Man Far From Home, who is making an international Quiz Bowl tournament after the events of Endgame, after the snapping? Like, is that really the best thing to do right now? Like, after all of this near apocalypse happened, and then everyone coming back and the Earth having to, like, recompensate for all of its resources, whose idea was it to have an international Quiz Bowl tournament in Venice? Because, I mean, that's what Peter Parker is, like, I assume that's what Peter Parker and his friends are going to Venice for. There's some international Quiz Bowl thing. That's why they went to Washington, D.C. in Homecoming. They were going to Quiz Bowl, or whatever it's actually called in there, but essentially it was just Quiz Bowl. So who is planning to go to Quiz Bowl international, not only just a Quiz Bowl tournament, but an international Quiz Bowl tournament? Like, what parent is like, oh my god, I just got my child back after him being snapped out of existence for 5 years. Okay, go ahead to another continent. I'm sure some of these questions will be answered. I at least hope that some of these questions will be answered, that we do get to see how the Earth is coming back together after people being snapped away and snapped back, because those are both huge events that are going to have mass repercussions. So I would like at least some of those answers brought up in either Spider-Man Far From Home or any of the other films that are coming out next after Spider-Man Far From Home. We don't know the schedule yet after Spider-Man Far From Home. So hopefully those questions will be answered. I would love to actually see how it is that Earth finds that new normal and then once again has to adjust to a new normal, because those are both big events. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think about some of the post-Endgame questions? What were your questions that you'd like to know as we go forward in this new Marvel Cinematic Universe saga, starting with Spider-Man Far From Home? Let me know in the comments and follow me on all the internets. Remember, if you want your answer featured in a What You Gaming On segment. Let me know the game you're playing, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and your answer will be featured in an upcoming episode of What You Gaming On. If you want to check out any of my other work, from movie reviews to blogs to TV show reviews to just the rest of my videos, you can find them on treyguillotine.blogspot.com or youtube.com/tguillotine. And share the video around so others can join in the conversation. Thanks for watching. Have fun.